Rosemary Care.
Monica Ruggles.
Ramo Piketty.
And from city staff, we have Ms. Kathy Cerniak, who is Director of Community Development. Our first item of business is consideration of approval of the minutes of the December 12, 2018 Plan Commission meeting. Do any commission members have any corrections or additions?
Chairman, I have one question, I guess. Underneath number 3 on the front page, recognition of past Plan Commissioner Tim Henry. It was my understanding that I was Mr. Henry's replacement from the 3rd Ward, and that Stephen Douglas replaced Louis Pickus, I think. I don't know if that's important or
I
not.
can certainly make that correction.
Yeah, I don't know if it's important.
Any other comments?
And then just another question on page 9, under the second condition about vegetation along the public sidewalk on Woodland Road. I thought we had added to that and Western. I'm not too sure, but I thought it was Woodland and Western. If you can just check that, Kathy. Maybe we just talked about it.
You did add that, and if it's not in here, I will make sure it gets added.
Okay, thank you. And that's it.
I believe in number 1, the last few lines in number 1, speak to landscaping along Woodland Road and Western Avenue must be maintained in good condition and replaced as necessary, subject to the determination of the city's certified arborist.
Okay, gotcha, okay. All right, thank you.
And I just noticed a few typos, which I'll hand to Kathy at the end of the meeting. Then if there are no other comments, would someone care to make a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes as noted.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes of the December 12, 2018 Plan Commission meeting, say aye.
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 The motion is passed. Now we'll move to the first agenda item, public hearing and action. Consideration of a request for approval of the tentative and final plat for a 2-lot re-subdivision of Lot 3 in the Conway Park at Lake Forest subdivision. A hotel was recently approved for a portion of the site, Lot 3A. Lot 3B is planned for development with an office building in the future. A variance from the 5-acre minimum lot size in the OR-2 zoning district is requested. The property is located on the west side of Field Drive and addressed as 200 Field Drive. Property owner Laurel Avenue Lake Forest Limited Partnership, comprised of Trillium Investments 1%, Gary Janko 79%, and Janko Financial Group LLC 7%. Presented by Jim Puritan of the Janko Group. And prior to Jim coming forward, I would ask if any commission members have any conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts.
No.
Well, I will state that Gary Janko is a former client of mine. However, now that I've retired, there is no longer a conflict. Mr. Purton, would you please proceed?
Thank you. As noted, I'm Jim Purinton. I'm head of development for Janko Group. Our offices are located at 2610 Lake Cook Road in Riverwoods. We are requesting, as noted, a subdivision of Lot 3 into 2 parcels, which ends up being a re-subdivision of that lot. The smaller lot of approximately 3.6 acres is adjacent to Field Drive and will be the location of the Lake Forest Hyatt Place Hotel, which is hopefully scheduled to start construction later this year. The larger lot of approximately 6.1 acres, which is adjacent to the tollway, will be reserved for future use, probably an office building of up to 105,000 square feet. Both of these lots are designed to self-park and be self-contained, and they're about the right size for the contemplated uses. And there are no variances required by either the other than the too small a lot. There's no variances from zoning or the CRs for Conway Park. Because the smaller lot's less than 5 acres, we do need the variance for the 5-acre minimum lot size, as is required for the OR-2 zoning district. Why are we making a request at this time? As you may be aware, approvals for the development of the 158-room Hyatt Place Hotel have largely been secured. The Building Review Board approved the proposed hotel in late spring last year. And then in June, the City Council approved both the BRB's recommendation and a hotel tax incentive for the hotel development. And also, as you know, development projects in Conway Park do not go through the Lake Forest Planning Commission, but instead are subject to the CC&Rs for Conway Park and approval of Conway Park Association. Let me say that there's very, very strong support for the hotel among Conway Park corporate owners. They have been waiting for hotel for over 20 years. And the Conway Park Owners Association has provided its enthusiastic approval of the proposed hotel, but with one significant condition, that the lot be subdivided now rather than after the hotel is completed, as was the original plan. A word about the variance. We believe the variance for a smaller lot for the hotel in Conway Park is a unique, one-of-a-kind situation. First, there are very few vacant sites for development in Conway Park, very few of which could accommodate a hotel. And secondly, the market probably won't handle a second hotel anytime in the foreseeable future. The City Council actually agreed with our assessment by providing a short period of exclusivity for the Hyatt Place in terms of limiting other hotel incentives for the general geography for a 5-year period. The result is that there's a very low likelihood of another request for a lot size variance for a hotel in Conway Park. Accordingly, approval of our request, we don't think, will set a precedent with regard to lot size variances for other properties located elsewhere in the OR2 zoning district. We're kind of unique in this situation. And that's it for my presentation.
Thank you. Kathy, would you like to make your presentation, please?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Kerr. As Mr. Puritan stated, a hotel has long been anticipated in Conway Park. In fact, when the property was annexed over 20 years ago, a hotel was called out in the original annexation agreement for the property. Over the years, we've talked to various property owners about the potential for the hotel, and the Genco Group is really the first group that has really been, the time is right, the people involved are right, and they were able to bring a hotel forward. Last spring, the Building Review Board did review the overall site plan, the proposed massing design materials of the building. The City Council also approved that, as well as was mentioned, an economic incentive agreement for the property. The subdivision is requested from the minimum lot size in the OR2 zoning district, specifically because this is a different and really a one-of-a-kind use in the park. This particular lot 3 in the park, is just over 9 acres, so it's a larger lot. And a hotel really lends itself to a smaller lot. I think in our original discussions, the subdivision was going to be deferred, but at the request of the Conway Park Owners Association, and in fact, I just met with that group again this morning, they are very excited and supportive of a hotel, but it was important to them to at least see the subdivision approval in place so they could be assured that the rest of the property would be available at some point for an additional office building. I notice in my packet, the last page with 4 recommended conditions is missing. I assume that might be the case with your packet. Staff is recommending approval of the 2-lot subdivision subject to 4 conditions. One is that prior to recording the plat, in fact, all of these are prior to recording the plat, the city must receive written confirmation from the Conway Park Owners Association that they too have given final sign-off to the subdivision. They are the controlling body for Conway Park. Number 2, that before the plat is recorded, substantial progress must be shown on the completion of the hotel. Both the Owners Association and the city want to avoid a situation where we move forward immediately with recording the plat, something falls apart, and we end up with a 3.5-acre parcel that is not moving forward with a hotel. So we would work with the developer to get the timing right on the actual recording of the plat. The hotel, again, is approved and could proceed tomorrow if the building permits were were issued. Number 3, that the final plat of subdivision shall meet all applicable requirements and to the satisfaction of the city engineer and the director of community development. And 4, that prior to recording, all applicable fees due at that time must be paid prior to the recording. So with that, city staff does recommend approval.
Thank you. Commissioners, I'd like to see if you have questions for the petitioner. I'd like to start with Commissioner Berg.
I have no questions right now.
Commissioner Freeman?
Kathy, there was reference to Building Review Board review. Can you help me understand that?
Yes, the Building Review Board reviewed the site plan, proposed conceptual landscape plan, building, the overall design and materials, and signage and lighting. The Building Review Board's recommendation moved forward to the City Council, and the City Council approved that recommendation.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Commissioner Athenson?
So just to follow up on that question, so the Building Review Board was satisfied with the amount of landscaping? It seems like it's very minimal on this spot, but they're okay with, and the City Council were okay with the amount?
Yes, and this certainly is recognized as a conceptual landscape plan, as is often the case. As the project moves forward, as we issue the building permit and the site begins to take shape, we do see a more refined and often more detailed and enhanced landscape plan. So we will certainly be working with the developers as the project moves forward. I will note that Conway Park, the Owners Association also are very, that association is very involved in landscaping as well.
Yeah, because I think the danger with a smaller lot is you have minimal green space then here, which is pretty out of character with Conway Farm. So just curious to see maybe if we could enhance that in the future when they're looking at the final landscape plan. And then I know the fear here is that we're setting a bad precedent for Conway Park, but I'm looking at my site plan here. Are there any other lots that are available for sale within Conway?
There are 2 lots, 2 vacant lots owned by Abbott. They are located on the east side of Field Drive
Okay.
at the north end of the park. And buildings are actually approved for both of those vacant parcels, and they would mirror the existing Abbott building that's located in between those 2 parcels. There is an additional parcel that is right up against the Oasis, but it is the site of an extensive berm. So in effect, it really is not buildable. And then this is the other available lot.
So Conway Park Association is pretty confident that this will be the only hotel and the only need to subdivide a lot like this?
I think that's the general belief. It's taken probably almost 25 years to get a hotel. So I think that's the sense, is that one hotel will likely meet the need at this location.
Yeah, because I just want to ensure that we're compatible with the rest of Conway here in terms of minimizing any kind of further subdivision of taking a large lot down to smaller, because you have a certain rhythm of all the buildings on the lot, on the drive here. And then just one other question for you, Kathy. I know you talked about the original annexation agreement, and it provided, a part of that agreement said that there was supposed to be a hotel. How?
It contemplated a hotel, yes.
So is that part of, I'm just wondering, who enforces that? What if no hotel ever went up? How does that impact that original annexation agreement?
The annexation agreement with respect to uses, office buildings, hotels, child care center, it was permissive. There was the annexation agreement did not mandate a hotel.
Oh, okay.
And the OR2 zoning was written to align with that annexation agreement, because the OR2 district applies only to Conway Park.
Okay. That's my questions for now.
Thank you. Commissioner Piketty?
Thank you. It's about time. Thank you. I support this wholeheartedly. How, once the hotel is up, how will access be gained to Lot B?
If you have a site plan in front of you,
Yeah.
I don't have one. Conway has designated one access point per lot. And on that lot, it's on the north end, and it's a shared access. So there's a shared drive
Okay,
that goes left to the hotel and then continues kind of curvilinearly straight to, in your packet, there is one site plan that I think has both buildings on it.
yeah, that's helpful. I can see that now.
Yeah, yeah, and so there will be a shared access agreement, obviously.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
No, sorry, thank you.
That's fine. Commissioner Ruggles?
Kathy, I have a question. Are any of the other parcels in Conway Park, the larger parcels, subdivided? See how this one is, it's basically subdividing it in two, so we're gonna have like what I would call a flag lot?
Yes. The graduate school parcel, which is on Field Court. In fact, that parcel may actually also have been given a variance from the minimum lot size. When the graduate school located in Conway Park, it too was seen as a unique use, a use that really integrated well with the corporate offices. But that parcel was large, so behind that parcel is a multi-tenant building.
So is there any concern that then the lot 3B, the one behind it, would be a little less valuable because there's no street frontage on Field Drive?
That's really a developer decision.
Okay.
It has more presence on the tollway than the office building located behind the graduate school.
Okay, thank you.
A couple of questions. Mr. Burton, is the 105,000 square foot building going to be required as a single tenant building the way most of the others are in Conway?
No. Actually, we're next door to Conway 1 and 2, which are multi-tenant
Right.
buildings. But there are a lot of single-tenant users, and we have proposals out to a particular single-tenant user.
Okay.
But the parking ratio, actually, that you have on your site plan is it's close to 4 to 1, which is in excess of most other Conway buildings. The Conway standard is much lower. And that really allows us the flexibility, if you will, for multiple tenants. And the other part of it is, since it's not built yet, we also have the ability of a single user to have corporate parking underneath. We can do a basement for covered parking. So, we're marketing the heck out of all that. In response to the other question about visibility, you can see how they're sited on the site so that both have, the hotel needs visibility from the freeway for its sign. And fortunately, we got everybody to agree to that side of the sign with the Hyatt logo and so forth. And then the office building is sort of perpendicular to the highway. And we'll have pretty good visibility as well.
Will you have to go to the owners association if you want to make it a multi-tenant office building?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. We haven't had that. We didn't have this conversation with them. They said, whatever's fine.
Okay. And it was at the request of the owners association that you have used this common driveway for both lots?
Well, I think that's mandated in the plat, and that's the Bible. So yes.
Kathy, one question I had, one of the requirements set by the city is substantial completion. How would you define that?
We will be working with the developer and the city attorney to define that, as well as the owners association.
Okay.
But we'd like to see some activity on the site, not just simply the plan submitted for permit.
Let me just point out, there'll be some conversations. The CPOA requirement was that it's platted subdivision before we start construction, so we'll work that out with Kathy. There's a little bit of timing difference there. Maybe we have our construction contract and a shovel out there or something.
Okay, I guess I would consider substantial completion the building completed.
And we have had some discussions with Conway Park Owners Association, so we will reach agreement on that.
Okay. And will you let the Plan Commission know
Sure,
what the revised, what the final document looks like?
sure.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any other questions? Any requests for, actually, let me go to questions and requests for clarification from the commission to either petition or staff. Any additional questions? No. Any public testimony? Seeing no further questions, would the staff like to respond to any other comments from the commission, since we've had no public testimony?
No, nothing further.
Okay. Any commission discussion and comment?
I would just say I'm really pleased we're going to have another hotel here. I think it's a much-needed addition to Conway, to Lake Forest. And I think it seems to me like everyone's really been diligent about reviewing the potential for a precedent like this. Doesn't seem like we will be in danger of having another situation like this, breaking up smaller lots, undersized lots. And it already exists with the Graduate School of Management, so I'm in support of it.
I like the hotel idea too. I think it's good.
Well, the Plan Commission in this case has been the final stop because you've already been through building review and the city council. So I would ask for any action on the part of the committee. Anyone care to make a proposal?
Yeah, I would make a motion that we approve the tentative and final approval of this re-subdivision of Lot 3 into lots 3A and 3B as part of the Conway Park subdivision with there really are no other staff recommendations, right? I mean, that's it.
Well, the four conditions that Kathy mentioned.
Anyone in our packet?
Yeah, subject to the staff recommendations 1 through 4 in the packet.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 The motion is passed. Thank you. Next on the agenda is consideration of a request for approval of the tentative and final plat of condominium for the first condominium building in the Laurel and Western Avenues development. The plat of condominium delineates the individual units and the common areas in the condominium building on which construction is nearing completion. The building is addressed as 1155 Kelmscott Way and is located west of Western Avenue between Laurel Avenue and Franklin Place. No changes to the development as previously approved are proposed. Property owner, Kelmscott Park Condos LLC, which is owned 10% by Focus Kelmscott LLC and 90% by CL4 REO USA LLC. Presented by Courtney Brower, Development Manager, Focus Development. And before giving your presentation, do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you're about to give or have previously given is true and correct to your best knowledge?
I do.
And state your name, please.
My name is Courtney Brower.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Courtney Brower. I'm Senior Development Manager at Focus Development. I've been involved with the Kelmscott Park development since we kicked off construction of the apartment building in fall of 2016. First off, I wanted to thank the board for getting the plat on the agenda this evening. And as was stated, before you is the final plat of condominium for 1155 Kelmscott Way, which is ready to be recorded in preparation for the first closings that are scheduled for mid to late February. We had previously received approval on the tentative plat in April of 2016. And what's being presented to you today is in substantial conformance with what was presented in April, and has just been adjusted for minor construction tolerances. If there are any questions about it, I am here to answer.
Kathy?
This, like the petition before you, is really coming to you at the end of much discussion and many approvals and actually construction. So this is really a formality. Plats of condominium cannot come before the Plan Commission until the building is built, because they do reflect actual dimensions of the units. So this plat, like other plats of condominium that you have seen, reflect the areas, the units that will be in private ownership, areas, common areas, the hallways, the grounds, and limited common areas, such as the parking spaces within the underground garage and storage units. This is necessary in order to allow the sale of units to occur, and we're excited that those are set to start occurring very soon. So staff does recommend approval, and with your approval, this too would move on to the City Council for a final action.
Thank you. I should ask the commission members on this agenda item, do you have any conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts to report? No. So now I would ask commission members for questions, starting with Commissioner Ruggles.
I have no questions.
Commissioner Piketty?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Athenson?
I have a quick question for Kathy. I noticed on the plat of survey, they have listed the marshal and collector of the city of Lake Forest. Who is that?
That is always the police chief. So right now it is Chief Carl Waldorf.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And that's the only thing the marshal and collector does, is sign plats.
Okay, all right. That's all my questions.
Commissioner Freeman?
None, thank you.
Commissioner Berg?
No, everything looks pretty straightforward.
I had a question. Have you been offering the units for sale subject to getting this final plat? Do you have any under contract?
We do. We have 12 currently under contract. And we have not released the notification to close, but we are anticipating that we will be able to close mid to late February.
Okay. Thank you. Any members of the public who would like to present testimony? Seeing none, I would ask if there are any final questions from the commissioner to the petitioner or the staff.
No.
Okay. Seeing none, I would give the commission members the opportunity to make any additional comments or discussion at this time. Seeing none,
Motion for tentative and final approval of the plat of condominium as submitted with the subject to the three staff recommendations in the packet.
is there a second?
Second.
Motion to approve the tentative and final plat with the conditions mentioned by Commissioner Freeman. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item of business is consideration of adoption of an updated zoning map. No zone changes are proposed as part of this periodic update of the city's official zoning map presented by city staff. Kathy?
This is a routine matter. State statute does require that periodically the city adopt an official zoning map. So although zone changes occur not very often because we're almost a built-out community, but although zone changes occur, we then, every year or two, depending on zone changes that have occurred, bring you back an official map for review and adoption. This map reflects one change, and that is the rezoning of the property actually that involved the Genco Group. It was property owned by Lake Forest Open Lands. It is located on the north side of Wesley Road, just west of Ridge Road. And the Plan Commission recently saw this property, approved a 9-lot subdivision. 9 acres of the 22-acre site will be the subject of that development. The rest of the property will remain in Lake Forest Open Lands ownership and will be preserved as open space. In order to do the planned preservation subdivision, and to get the 9 lots, the entire property needed to be rezoned. It was previously zoned R5, which had a minimum density of 3-acre lots. It was rezoned to R4 in its entirety. Open Lands intends to come back and rezone their portion of the property to open area, OA. They have not done that yet, but because we had not adopted a zoning map in a couple of years, we wanted to get something up to date and make it available to people. So your recommendation on this zoning map would incorporate that single zone change.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments? I'll make this open for any and all who.
Kathy, this map does include that, that subdivision that we did at the end of Oak Knoll, right?
It does. That was included in the last update, which I think was done in 2016.
Okay.
And that subdivision was approved in 2015. So that does show that the property I believe you're speaking of is north of Conway Road at the very north end of Oak Knoll Drive. You'll see Sage Court is up there, and I believe that was 16 lots. There are some other cleanup zone changes that we hope to take care of, particularly west of Middle Fork Farm. There's some property owned by the Forest Preserve and Open Lands that is still reflected as residential zoning. We'd like to turn that green. So we would bring that forward to you in the future and incorporate that in a future update to the zoning map.
It's not on the agenda, but since we're talking about the zone though, this change that we're making now is already consistent with the special use permit that was granted by this commission for this property. So this is essentially just effectuating what we already agreed was approved.
Yes.
There was a previous one though, and I hate to bring things that aren't part of the agenda, but there was an issue of Estate Lane property, remember, where the neighbors were concerned about whether the zoning was proper, although it had been around for 5 or 6 decades. Any discussion of that? I mean, or is this specifically meant to be related to this one parcel, and we'll worry about whatever the neighbors bring before us later? But I just thought, it strikes me as we haven't seen any changes there.
We have not. The subdivision was approved on property that was right at the transition between R2 zoning and R4 zoning. So this is before you not as a request for a zone change. The zone change request has already been before the Plan Commission, approved by the City Council. The ordinance is already adopted. This simply incorporates changes that have occurred since the last adoption into this official map.
Okay.
So that's why I would consider it a routine matter, and it's required because the state statute requires us to adopt an official zoning map.
Right, okay, thank you.
Kathy, a quick question. Just wondering, why don't schools have a different zoning?
Schools and churches and private clubs and the Historical Society, the college, the hospital, this community, unlike some communities, have retained residential zoning of those institutional uses. And those uses are classified as special uses. That's why the hospital, rather than being an institutional zoning district that really would allow them to move forward by right, that's why we spent probably a year working through the master plan for the hospital, for instance. That's why we often see changes to Lake Forest College. So historically, this community has retained residential zoning as the primary zoning throughout the community and has not allowed that freedom. Institutional or governmental zoning usually is pretty loose, really allows those institutions to do what they will without a public review process. The other reason for that is many of our institutions are really very embedded in established neighborhoods. So they have single-family homes in front, to the side, and that creates an opportunity to have a discussion about lighting or landscaping or traffic.
So does that mean if there's any changes at Lake Forest High School, they have to go before the appropriate building review board or HPC?
Actually, the high school is the one exception.
Oh,
Because Lake Forest High School is governed by the State Board of Higher Education. Our elementary schools and our middle schools are on property owned by the city. So we have local control. But no, the high school, both West Campus and East Campus, really they don't even require building permits from the city. We are able to work with them closely and do inspections, and we've had a very good relationship. But because they're under the jurisdiction of the State Board of Higher Education, they do not require a special use permit.
interesting.
That's the one exception.
And then just one other question. So I know this is just a formality to approve this, but I'm just curious. So when we start our work with a comprehensive plan, could we potentially change this zoning map?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And any zone changes would be considered individually, and then they would be
Make the
grouped
plan.
together at a future update of the map.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
The motion is to approve and adopt the updated zoning map herein contained, with the only zoning change as noted regarding the preserve at Wesley subdivision. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The matter is approved. I'm going to ask if there are any members of the public who would like to address the Plan Commission on matters not on the agenda. Seeing none, we have one other item, consideration of the Plan Commission meeting schedule for 2019. Have all commission members now been able to give input to Kathy regarding any potential conflicts? So to the extent possible, we can incorporate them into this draft.
Well, I raised an issue with Kathy. I'm unable to attend meetings on Thursday nights. So with this latest change, that's a conflict for me.
Mr. Piketty, did you have any comments?
No, Kathy is aware of a couple of meetings that professional obligations will keep me away.
Okay.
And I will note that Commissioner Douglas notified me that he knows he is unavailable and out of town for the May meeting. So we do understand there will be absence. We have looked at other nights, the possibility for moving this earlier in the week or later, and with the variety of city meetings, board meetings, extra finance committees, there really isn't much of an option to make a permanent change.
So given the fact that the commission did not meet in each month of the prior year, 2018, we want to keep the business of the city moving along, but it may be that the June or November meeting, which is scheduled for a Thursday night, might be one that is not held at all.
It's really hard to predict.
Yes.
There have been years when we've had extra meetings.
Right.
But yes, it's very, it depends what comes forward.
That's my olive branch to you, Commissioner
Oh,
Atkinson.
yeah. Yes, well,
We did try, with these more routine matters, we did try and group them at the suggestion of a member. So we tried not to, that's why some of those meetings were canceled. We were able to work with the timing that brought these all three together. So we tried not to bring you together for a meeting with just one item such as this, but sometimes there's no option.
Well, and I appreciate that, but I do want to keep in mind the petitioners who do want to keep business moving, and that benefits the city. So I have no issue with shorter meetings to keep the business moving ahead. Do any of the commissioners have any other comments on the proposed draft schedule for the Plan Commission meetings in 2019?
the only other question I had is October 9th, is that Yom Kippur? I noticed that on my calendar. I don't know what the celebration involves, but I just noticed that and I don't know if that would impact us in any way, or, I just thought I'd mention that.
It is Yom Kippur.
Is it the beginning, or is it the end?
I think that's the day,
Yeah, it's just one day.
So it starts at sundown that
the evening before,
evening?
I think.
Because it goes
Right.
from sundown to sundown, doesn't it?
So just a thought about,
Well, if it doesn't, I guess that'll be up to the petitioners if that
Right.
impacts, right?
And we certainly will try and pull, every couple months or, look at 3 months out so that we have a sense if we're running into a problem. Adopting this doesn't mean we can't make a future change. And we'll try and keep in touch with you and know if we're down to a bare quorum.
So it appears that we would, at this point in time, at least have a significant number of commissioners so that we would have a quorum at each meeting. And events do come up, but I appreciate the fact that each of the commissioners has made very good efforts to come to each meeting. And it's important, I think, we get a better decision-making process, the more of us who can participate. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the schedule, obviously subject to future changes, but this is our schedule that can be posted on the website now, right? Okay. That's
Is
the
there a
motion
second?
to approve the schedule.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the Plan Commission meeting schedule from 2019 that is now on our desks, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is approved, and the meeting is now dismissed.
Rosemary, I said nay.
Oh, you did, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I like the original one, the original schedule.